Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're specifically going to talk about how old school dungeon masters should respond to new school Dungeons and Dragons, and how that model was very clearly set and shown, in my humble opinion, and in the reviewer and in some reviewers' opinions, from the Super Bowl halftime show. Okay, all right. So the Garibay family watched the Super Bowl this year, the Super Bowl 56, and we got to the halftime show, and they were talking about the halftime beforehand. I was like, holy cows, this halftime show, this Super Bowl halftime show was like made for me. Like, I'm a huge rap fan. No one in my family likes rap, but like they're like, okay, it's Dr. Dre, it's Mary J. Blige, it's Eminem, it's Kendrick Lamar, and it's Snoop Dogg. Like, I'm a fan of every 50 Cent is thrown in there. I'm not a big fan of him. But like, I was like, yeah, bet I'm in. Like, I'm very much going to enjoy this, right? And I did. I very much enjoyed it, right? So, I do have a comment. Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, Eminem, Mary J. Blige, they got stadium anthems. When they start singing their song, everybody in the stadium know it. Like, maybe they want to who don't, but like, a stadium anthem is when you start singing a song in a stadium, which is quite literally what they did. Everybody in the stadium sings along because they know it, right? So Dr. Dre, Eminem, Mary J. Blige, Snoop Dogg, they got stadium anthems. 50 Cent and Kendrick Lamar do not have stadium anthems. Like, nobody know it. Like, I like Kendrick Lamar, I do not like 50 Cent. And they just don't have stadium anthems. I think that was proven last night. Like, so that's just a little rap commentary from me, Scott Garibay, because I love rap and I love rap history. Now, if you ain't caught it, everybody on that stage was old school rap, right? So basically, you got old school rappers, right? And this came straight from a review I read of the Super Bowl halftime. I was like, people review the Super Bowl halftime? Trust and believe, they do. Like, there's commentary on everything now. It's just like it's not just like there's 1,000 people who do commentary on Dungeons and Dragons. There are a lot more than that who do commentary on the Super Bowl, right? So one of the reviewers said, they said, I liked the Super Bowl halftime because what these old school rappers did was they balanced celebration and protest. And I was like, what? Why would they need to balance celebration and protest? And the moment I heard it, I was like, oh my gosh, I do understand this. That's exactly what's happening with old school dungeon masters with new school Dungeons and Dragons, right? So there's a lot of old school dungeon masters out there, right? And they want to protest new Dungeons and Dragons because there's all kinds of things they're against, right? Like, and they got a long list. They got a long list, right? And so that protest manifests in two ways in old school dungeon masters, right? Generally, basically, one, they're like, I don't like new school dungeon masters. I don't like new school Dungeon Dragons, so I don't buy 5th edition, right? And I'm against it, and I still play 1E and I still play 2E, right? It's an old school dungeon master protesting, the things they don't like in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. And there's a whole, like, trust and believe. You can find just roam a little bit on YouTube. You won't have to go far, and there will be long videos of them telling you everything they don't like about 5th edition because the list is long, right? So they have these protests about Dungeons and Dragons, right? Now, what is the analog for protests for Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and Eminem? And let's take Eminem out of this conversation because he don't fit very well, right? Okay, all right. So let's talk about what protests would Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Mary J. Blige, 50 Cent, and Kendrick Lamar have, in rap. Well, they protest a lot of stuff. The biggest thing they protest is things about America, right? They're like, hey, our people weren't treated right when we came here, right? Hey, capitalism doesn't work really well for our people, right? Like, we're often kept out of deals. We're kept from being, in here. Police, right? We are treated differently by police in America than other people, right? Like, they got legitimate long lists of protests, right? So, all right, there ain't nothing more American in there. There's very few things in the world that are more American. Maybe mom apple pie and bald eagles are more American than American football, American gridiron football, where they play, where the Super Bowl comes from, right? Nothing more like that is red, white, and blue to the cut, right? Like, so get this, American football calls up, right, and goes, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Mary J. Blige, Kendrick Lamar, 50 Cent, we want you on that stage, right? And this is going to be a gigantic celebration of American capitalism. Because trust and believe, if the Super Bowl halftime is anything, it is a huge celebration of American capitalism, right? Like bald eagles, like American pie, like apple pie, everything American. Like that's the Super Bowl. Like Super Bowl, one of the most American things there is, right? And so they call up Dr. Dre and that list, and they're like, "You in?" Right? Now he got a whole bunch of protests. He protests all these elements of America, right? So basically, when American football calls and they're saying, "Dr. Dre, are you in?" They're saying, "Are you ready to celebrate and participate in American capitalism without protesting?" Like without protesting, right? And can you put your protest flag down for a minute and say, "Hey, there are a whole bunch of problems with America, but I'm American, right? And I celebrate America just like you celebrate America because it's not all bad. And I'm part of the system, right? I protest and I want the system to change, but I'm part of the system, right? Because trust and believe, you cannot get into the Super Bowl, into the Super Bowl halftime, do a whole bunch of song and dance and be like, I'm not part of the system. You part of the system when you're doing a Super Bowl halftime show, right? And so that's what happened, right? Dr. Dre, Mary J. Blige, Kendrick Lamar, 50 Cent, and Snoop Dogg, they're like, we still have protest, okay? But we're part of the system and we're in it. We're not opposed to American capitalism. We want to be part of American capitalism. We want to be an equal part of American capitalism. So while we have beef with American capitalism, with Americana, with America itself, we can put down our protest flag, join in, celebrate, and be part of the system. And I think that's an amazing model and the correct model for every old school dungeon master out there. Yes, Dr. Dre could have easily said, y'all can go kick rocks. I ain't coming and none of my peeps are coming, right? Like, and he could have called up Mary J. Blige. They're like, hey, let's keep the protest flags high, right? But he didn't. He's like, hey, we can protest, right? But there's got to be a point where we're on board, where we're on the bus, right? Like, so, and that's the issue. That's the issue, right? And I think that's the model for old school dungeon masters that should be followed, right? Protest. We want to hear it. Like, we don't want to silence your protests, right? But who's going to listen to you if you can never put your protest flag down, if you don't even want the system to succeed, right? If you aren't for Dungeons and Dragons, why should anybody listen to you? And that's what I took away. Like Dr. Dre, Mary J. Blige, 50 Cent, Kendrick Lamar, Snoop Dogg. They're like, we think that there are major problems in America, but we're American, and we love America just like you, and we celebrate America just like you. So if you're an old school dungeon master out there, you have the right to walk away, to say, burn the whole system down, right? Like, you have that right, right? But I think there's a better model, and I think Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Mary J. Blige, 50 Cent, and Kendrick Lamar are like, we got our protest flags, but we can put them down for 5 minutes so we can celebrate and tell you we are American. We are part of this system. We do love this system. We want to be part of it. We don't want to burn it down, right? It's a better model. That's my opinion. What's your opinion? Love to hear it. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.